everybody, it's Angel from Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Happy hump day. Whoop, whoop. Yes, happy Wednesday to each and every one of you. What are we doing today? Well, y'all know we're doing a table runner for St. Patty's Day. Now, I was thinking about this, and I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I mean, this is a true story. I don't have little people running around my house anymore. All my kids are grown. They moved on. They live somewhere else. They don't even live nearby. And I've gotten a little lazy at decorating for certain holidays. Now, Christmas, yeah, we put up the tree. We have various decorations. We get that done. And, you know, I get that done. But all the other holidays seem to fall a little bit on the wayside. And it's just because I just plain simple got lazy. So anything that I can do to help put a little something in it for that holiday, I know that it adds a little spark to your life. And if I'm going to do it, I want to make it quilty. So that's where this comes from. But there's other things you can do with this particular pattern, and I talk about that at the end too. So we are doing this St. Patty's Day table runner. This actually finishes at, well, before binding 42.5 by 18.5, with binding 42 by 18. You can make it longer, you can make it wider. I talk about that too later, but it's 42 by 18, and it doesn't take very long to make. I know we're less than a month away. If this is something that inspires you, you can get it done way before St. Patty's Day. So here's where we're coming at you. So this particular fabric, the green, I want to let you know I use, it's called Or Lucky, and it's from, I love this name. I love the name of this company. I had to read it because I want to make sure I'm saying it right. Freckle and Lolly. I always think of Lilo and Stitch whenever I say it, so that's why I have to look at the name. Freckle and Lolly. Such an adorable name. But that's who this Or Lucky fabric is from. It's actually it's a green base, as you can see. It's got some clovers mixed in with a green swirl to it. Super cute. Absolutely darling. And then the white that I used is one of my favorite background fabrics, which is Tone on Tone Blossoms White by Christopher Thompson for Riley Blake Designs. You can find all that in the shop if you're so intrigued. Now, how much does it take? So the green actually took a half yard. Now I am bumping that up by the quarter because we don't typically buy by the quarter, and it's somewhere it's like 3/8, so I'm bumping it up to a quarter. And I will tell you, I cut wrong at one point. I actually cut a yard, and I cut wrong one of my strips, and I have half a yard left. Okay, so 3/8 of a yard is what it actually calls for, but if you buy a half, you'll have plenty, even if you make a mistake, because I actually have a half a yard plus the boo-boo strip, okay? As far as the white goes, well, it's very important. I would do 3/4 yard. And of course, we can't buy 3/4, so you'll have a quarter left over. Unless you do have a company you can buy it from at a quarter, then 3/4 will make it perfect. 3/4 yard for the white, half for the green printed fabric Or Lucky that we carry here in the shop. Okay, so as far as backing goes, you'll need 1.5 yards of whatever you choose. I'm actually going to back it in that green. So I've cut another 1.5 yards because I didn't want too many seams on my back. And that will include a 4-inch overage when you do that, okay? Because no matter how you're quilting, you're going to need some sort of overage. Now, you might not need quite 4 inches, but that's what I did it for, just in case you're sending it to a long arm or you have a long arm and you like that 4-inch overage. 1.5 yards with 4-inch overage, and that is everything is based on a 40-inch width of fabric of usage. That math is based on that 40. So that's important too, because you may have You may see a little extra because if you actually have 42 width of fabric of usage, you may have a little extra. So I just want to put that out there and make you aware of it. Backing 1.5 yards with 4 inches of overage at a 40-inch width of fabric. Binding, you will need, it's 1/3 of a yard. It is. So I have to cut a half. And I think I'm gonna bind it in the white. So I don't have the same amount left. So I'm gonna have to go through my scraps to see if I have any or whatnots. But 1/2 a yard is where I'm going, because I don't buy 1/3 of a yard. I don't sell 1/3 of a yard, and I don't cut 1/3 of a yard. So I'm doing a half, but it's 1/3 of a yard, just to let you know. It's about 10 inches of fabric is what it boils down to, with the fabric, that is. All right, so I will also tell you, there are a lot of different parts in here, okay? There's a lot of subcuts that you need to do. So I will go through them at each step. But if you aren't taking notes and writing it down, and you just want something simple, easy to go to, I have supplied a supply list on our website, and I will put the address down here. Now, if you're watching this on the 22nd of February, it is at the top of the list. And we're going through a change on our website to make it a little more easy to find things. But if we haven't gotten there yet, you may have to scroll a bit. There's plenty of freebies out there on that inspiration tab on our website. And I'll also put it in the description box for you. But it's on there. It's a supply list. It tells you all the information that I'm giving you and how many subcuts that you'll need to make, meaning how many greens at this, like, you know, if there are 2.5-inch squares, how many green 2.5-inch squares, how many white 2.5-inch squares, whatever they are. I give you the list of subcuts. I give you the yardage that you need, everything that you need, the supply list. It's not a pattern, it's a supply list. I walk you through different things throughout this video to help you put this all together. And it's not hard, guys. And it goes fast. And it's super friendly. So I hope you'll try this. So we have the supply list. The other thing that you're going to need is the template. Okay? And I have created 2 templates. And I talk about that later in the video. It's also free. Okay? And for the first time, I don't have a whole bunch of words, including the copyright at the bottom. I don't have any of that, and there's a reason for it, so we'll talk about that later. But if you want to have the shamrocks that show up in the middle, you'll need the template, which is also on the same page listed. It's separate than a supply list. But if you want the template for the clovers, it's there too, okay? Completely free. Free for you to use, free to you to make this fun St. Patty's Day table runner. And because the fabric's called Or Clover, I don't know. I gotta ask, I should call the company and ask them why the name. I'm just gonna call it the Lucky Table Runner. So that's all we have of what we need, where you can find the information for free, where you can get the template. Now I bet you just want to learn how to make this thing, right? All right. Me too. Oh, wait, I already did that. Well, let me show you how. So I'll see you guys in just a sec. The first block that we're going to make, because there's only 2. So the first block is the simple and easy 9 patch. Gotta love it. So for all the 9 patches for this fun St. Patty's Lucky Day table runner, you will need 20 2.5-inch squares of your background fabric and 25 2.5-inch squares for your print. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to simply, and it's important that we lay these out correctly. So I'm going to lay out one block, and this is a very simple block, and I think I've done it a million times with you guys, but I'm just running through pretty darn quick. And it's important that you lay out the print versus the background just as so. All right. Because the way it interacts with the other blocks and the sashing will in fact need to be in this format. So your backgrounds are on the outside four corners and one in the middle. Not your backgrounds, your printed. And the background fabrics are in the middles, depending on how you look at it. So middle on the top, on the outside in the middle, row, and bottom is on the inside. Okay, it's very important. So this is what I do. Now, of course, we're going to make several of these. So I would chain piece them. But I'm going to show you just how I get it done so my points are pretty. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these first two rows together. And I took the middle row and I flipped over to the first row. And I'm simply going to sew my 1/4 inch seam right along here. Okay. Once that is done, and I'm going to talk about pressing to make this a little easier for anybody who's interested. Okay, so on these ones I've done that. I've sewn those first two rows together and I went ahead and pressed. This should measure at 2.5 by 4.5 when you're done. Okay, that way you can check your seam to make sure you're on board. But I've pressed going towards the dark side. You could press towards the background if you so choose, but one way or the other, press all towards the same fabric. Okay, so I printed here. I pressed here, pressed to the green. Whoop, that ain't right. There we go. And I pressed to the green. Okay, then I just simply take the last rows, and again, I just send them all through 1/4 inch seam. And once you are done with that, this is what that'll look like. And again, I pressed towards the printed fabric, towards the green, okay? What that does is it makes life easy for you to nest your seams. You want to put them together, and you always want to check that they're actually flush, not overlapping, and there's no gap. That's where you miss your points, if there's a gap or they overlap. Okay, and I simply pin on the right of the seam and the left of the seam, and I'll do it on both sides. And what I'll end up doing is I'll attach all the rows together like this. So once I'll go ahead and sew my 1/4 inch seam along here, and once these are together, I'll add the bottom. Okay, which way am I going to press? It won't matter because we have sashing. So I'm going to press them going away from the center. Okay, so the first two rows I'll press going up. The bottom, when I add the bottom row, I'll press going down, and that will help with the bulk, spreading the bulk out a little bit. So once you're done with that and you get everything pressed, you'll end up with a 6.5 inch square. Okay, or at least you should. And this is what mine looks like on the back. If you're just so curious, you're going to make 5 of these. Okay, very, very simple. Gotta love it. Once you have all these 5 done, we're going to, well, for the video purposes, I'm going to come back at you and we're going to talk about the second block, which is a little more fun. So I will see you guys in just a sec. We've made all 5 9 patches. Now we're going to make our second block, which is this adorable sawtooth star with a shamrock right in the middle. So let's talk about the things that we're going to need to make this cute block, which, by the way, you will also need 5 of these. So there's a total of 10 blocks, 5 of these, and this also is going to be unfinished because it's not in the quilt at 6.5 inches. Okay, 5 at 6.5 inches is what we're going to. So let's talk about some of the things that we'll need. So the first thing is you will need 2-inch squares in your printed fabric. Okay, you're going to need 40 of these. 42-inch squares in printed. You're going to need 5 3.5-inch squares in white. Those are for the center of your block. You're going to need 2-inch blocks also in your, I said white, but it's white for me, but your background fabric. 2-inch squares, you'll need 20 of those. And last but not least, you're going to need 1.5, nope, that's not true, 2 by 3.5-inch rectangles. You're going to need 20 of those. So 20, 20, 5, and 40, okay? Most of this is background fabric, and then 40 of your 2-inch greens. And last but not least, you're also going to need 5 3-inch squares. These are going to be for your shamrocks. So this up here is for the star. These are for your shamrocks. All right. So what else do you need for those shamrocks? We're going to start with those, and we're going to talk about that. You're also going to need a template. Now, what I have done here, and I've started, okay? I have provided these for free. They won't have a title on them, and they won't have our little copyright symbol. This is a free item for you guys. And in case you do it the way I did it, I wanted to not have a bunch of stuff all over the template, because I think it took away from the actual too much of the heat and bond light. Okay. And that's what this is, guys. This is what I did. Okay. So here's the scoop. This one, I got them upside down. Let me turn it around. This one I actually called reversed. You don't have to print both. You only need 5. I gave you an option on which way you want your clovers to go, or your shamrocks to go. And in case you wanted to mix and match. So some go one way, some go the other. It's whatever floats your boat. It's all out there for free on our website. But the reason I didn't put all that stuff on there is because I printed on heat and bond light. If you don't have an inkjet printer, you want to print it on paper, and then you'll want to take your heat and bond light, if you are using the raw edge applique method, and you'll want to trace not this second line. This is in case you have a different preferred method. This is your 1/4 inch line. Some people prefer different applique methods, so I leave it on there. But if you're using raw edge like me and you don't have a printer, just like I've done in the past with you guys, you're just going to simply trace around the actual shamrock and not the 1/4 inch. Okay. That'll get you the same thing as this. But I'm telling you guys, putting it in your printer, if you got an inkjet printer, works great. Super love that. Okay. Now, whenever you do print on an inkjet printer, I actually cut myself an 8.5 by 11 sheet out of my own stash of heat and bond light. And my printer, I have to load it with the glue facing up in the tray, because when it comes around, it prints like this. And you want to make sure that you're printing on the paper side and not on the glue side. Okay. And when you trace, you want to trace on the paper side and not on the glue side. All right. Now, as you see, I don't need the 1/4 inch because I'm using raw edge applique. So I just simply loosey-goosey cut it out. Now, if you're wondering, I did not even put a 1-inch square on here to make sure you're measuring them good. The actual shamrock from stem to leaf without the 1/4 inch is 2 1/4 and roughly 2 3/8 wide. It will fit inside your 3-inch square. Okay. Let me get this out of the way. So you're simply going to take your 3-inch square and you're going to put it wrong side up. Okay. And then you're going to take your shamrock and you're just going to put it anywhere. Now, if you have directional fabric or a preference that you might have on, what's being facing, you need to be careful about it and take a peek on which way you're putting it, okay? I don't really care on mine. They're all kind of everywhere, non-directional, so it made it a lot easier. But you're just going to make sure that the glue side, so not the part that you've traced or printed, the traced or printed side's facing up, glue side facing down to the wrong side of the fabric. Then you're simply going to take it to your iron on a medium heat, okay? When you are applying the template to the fabric, medium heat is like a wool setting for mine. I don't know what it is for you. I actually have a number 2 on one of them instead of a number 3. So medium heat, you're going to hold that down for about 2 seconds when you first initially put it on, okay? So once that's glued on, once you've pressed it and it's cooled, what you're going to have is this, okay? Now, I just realized I used my fabric scissors to cut this original out instead of my paper scissors, but it happens. I do go back and forth with this part. I do tend to use fabric scissors instead of paper scissors. I go back and forth. Not right or not wrong. Now, I've started to cut this one, but I wanted to just probably give you a short demo. All you're basically going to do is you're going to sit and you're going to cut along the outline, okay? Don't have to worry about being too perfect. It gives you a nice outline, and you're just going to simply cut it on out. And what you're going to get, I actually have some, so you don't have to sit here and watch me cut this whole thing out. This is what you're going to end up with. Aren't they cute? Super love these shamrocks. Okay, so that's what you're going to end up with. We took the 3-inch square, we took our template, and we glued it right onto it, cut it on out, and this is what you're going to get. Now, if you notice, now my stem is going to the right. The reverse side looks like this, okay? But when you apply it to the wrong side of the fabric, it makes it go the other direction. For me, it didn't matter one way or the other. So I'm just using all 5 going the same direction, and I didn't care which one I used. So I just printed one on the Heat and Bond Light, could have traced it, and be done. Okay, but you'll have 5 of these by the end of it. All right, so now we're going to start to line up our block. So what we're going to do, I'm going to line up one block and walk it with you. Okay, so that's our center. And you know what these are, guys? We got 4 of these, right? Now I have tone on tone, so you always want to be careful. Make sure that it's on the right side, not the wrong side. They're hard to tell, but in lighting it helps because it's a little bit shiny. Okay, we're going to start, guys, with flying geese. That's what all these are. So each block has 4 of the 2 by 3.5 rectangles, 8 of the 2-inch printed squares, 1 3.5 inch, and we also have, so guess what we're going to do, guys? We are actually going to start with the flying geese. So I'm going to put this over here. This is for one block. So we're going to start with each of these flying geese. All right. And I will tell you, y'all know me if you've been around a while. If you haven't, you'll hear about it. I use disappearing ink. I love my purple. It also comes in a combo pack with pink, in case you need a different color. It's air and water soluble, and you can find these on the website, and they do disappear. They tell you to test. I will also encourage you to test it on your own fabric, but I've never had a problem. But that's my own experience. Okay. So we're going to take our 2-inch squares, and you're going to do this to all 8. If you're using disappearing ink, you'll not want to do all 8 at one time because it may, in fact, disappear on you before you get it sewn. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your 2-inch square in the printed fabric, turn it upside down, and I'm not right on the corner with my ruler because I want to make sure that I'm going to hit the corner. Okay. And when I'm happy, I think that needs to go in with it. Then I'll connect the dots. Okay. And then I'll put it on a rectangle. And at this point, it really doesn't matter because you only have one. And we're going to cut this side of it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch right next to this line, right along here. All right, just as close as I can get to that line, because I'm going to cut on this side. So this is my method, I always sew on the side of the line of which I'm going to cut. Okay, so you will do that to all 4. Okay, because we only have 4 rectangles. And this is what you're going to get. And I'm missing one. No, I'm not. There we go. Okay, and it actually looks like this. Now, I know it's hard for you to see my stitch line, and if you'll notice, my disappearing ink's really faded because it's almost gone. Okay, the first thing I do before I actually trim is I like to fold it up and make sure that I'm covering all of the white and that it's right. And I've done wrong, and it's easier now to take Jack and rip your seam because it wasn't right than it is if you cut it first before you check. Okay, so I always check to make sure that everything's lined up and it covers my white. Okay, then I line up my ruler and I'm taking my 1/4-inch line on my ruler. Okay, and I'm lining it up along the stitch line. And then I'm cutting them off. Now, you could save these and you could actually take them to the sewing machine. They're going to be really tiny and make half square triangles. I actually think I'm going to go ahead and do that, even though they're really tiny. I'll figure out what I'll do with them or not. Okay. But then I go ahead and I press going out. Okay. Then the next step, and if you'll notice, mine are all pressed going out. So whatever side you want the seam to go to, you put that on top and then you press. And that will give you the right direction. Okay. So after you have all of that done, then we're going to start with the second part of the flying geese. So we'll do the exact same thing. We'll take our ruler. Wrong side of the fabric is facing up on these 2-inch squares. I put my ruler so I can hit the corner with my pen. And when I'm happy with it, I connect the dots. And again, this time it does matter which way you lay it. So here we have our half flying geese. You want the line to go towards the middle. Just like so. Okay. And you want to make sure it's all lined up nice and pretty. And again, we're going to cut on this side. So again, I will stitch on this side of the line, like as close as I can get it. Okay. And you'll do that for all 4 triangles. And what you will have is your flying geese. Okay. Again, here is my stitch line. I don't think you can see the purple hardly anymore. It's fading fast too. And I do the exact same thing. And I fold it over and I make sure that I'm covering the white, because right now is the time I can rip and it's easy to fix. Okay. Once you're happy with that, again, you're going to simply line up your 1/4 inch along the stitch line. Cut that off. Keep this on top and press them going out. Okay? The last thing we're going to do is we're going to start to lay these out, guys. Okay? We've taken the rest of these. So we got our 3.5 inch square in the middle. Notice my flying geese, the points are towards the center. Let me move this out of the way. Okay. There we have it. Now what do we have? We have a 9 patch, guys. Easy breezy. We just did 9 patches. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew these all together in rows. Okay? So it makes it a lot easier to deal with. Now the beautiful thing about the way we press and do our flying geese is you have a little X right there where the 2 seams meet. You have an intersection. When I go to sew, and I'm going to bring you in, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but whenever you come through here, I try to stay right on top of it. Now sometimes I nail it. Okay, and sometimes they may float a little bit because I went too high up. Okay, but I'd rather it float than chop them off. Okay, but that's how I get those points on my flying geese. I use this beautiful X. So I'm going to bring you into the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch this on with you because these are where we're seeing that 1/4 inch to start with. Because remember, we're doing this row as a 1 with a 1/4 inch seam for each of these. This row as another row, 1/4 inch seam. And this row as a 1/4 inch seam. And just so you know, that's what this is going to look like. Okay. So we've got this right on top. I have a whole nother one here to keep going, but I wanted to sew this with you together, so that way you can see how if possible, I use that 1/4 inch, because that's basically what it is. But I just make sure in case I was off a little that I'm right above it. Okay, so I'm going to take you in just a second to show you that. But this is what you're going to have left. Now, as far as pressing goes, we're going to press in to the white, out to the white, out to the white. So out, in, out. Okay. And the reason is I didn't do it that way the first time. I pressed towards the flying geese. So you're pressing away from the flying geese because there's so much bulk back here. Oh, that's a good one to show you. See how I'm right on there? I hope you can see that. Right there at that intersection. And look how pretty that is. It's gorgeous. Okay. So, when you press away from the flying geese, it will lay flatter. The other way, there's a lot going on over here, and it makes it a little heavy. Okay. The seam. And then it doesn't lay quite as nice and flat. But at this point, if you press in that direction, you will do just like the other 9 patch. And you will sew the first row to the middle, making sure your seams nest, and they will. Go ahead and pin it, put it all together, and it'll be 6.5 inches. So I am going to take you into the sewing machine. We are going to do that as best as we can together. And then the next step, I'm going to bring you to the design board and talk about how to put this whole thing with the sashing and the cornerstones together. So I will see you guys in just a sec. Okay, the first thing you want to do is make sure that your fabric is lined up right sides together, all nice and pretty. And we're going to attempt to stitch right, it's almost on it. If you go right on it, you have a chance of cutting that point off. So here we go. Let's see how we do. Keep everything nice and straight. Now, if you notice, my seam is about to flip. So I'm going to lower that down just a bit. I'm trying to make sure the light doesn't flare you out. And I think we're going to go right above it. Oh, I wish you could see that more. Maybe if I blow it up, we'll find out, but I'm trying to make sure everything stays nice and straight and pretty. And when I get to the end, I'm going to go ahead and cut threads here. All right. I'll take care of that leader ender in a minute. So this is what it looks like. Not bad, not bad. Looks like got a little crooked, but you ain't going to notice that. But it's right almost above it. Let's see how we did. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Once I get this pressed, that point is on point. No pun intended. If you're wondering, I did forget about the shamrocks. So we're going to talk about that next before we hit the design board. So I'll see you guys in just a sec. Almost forgot about these darling little shamrocks. They go in the center. I will tell you, I put Pell-On Fuse and Tear on the back when I'm going to applique. That just helps prevent any kind of puckering that I may get, because sometimes that happens. Now with Fuse and Tear, Pell-On Fuse and Tear, the smooth side is the fusible side, and the rough side, or what feels like paper, is the non-fusible. So you want to put the fusible side down. Now I just cut like a rough cut of 3 3/4. It's not exact. Now with this stuff, you go to the temperature of the material that you're using and you hold it for 5 to 10 seconds. Okay, so it is on super high, as high as it'll go, because that's what my cotton calls for. And we'll just sit here and press it for about 5 to 10 seconds. And then we'll do the shamrock, which again, just want to make sure it's stuck. I'm going to flip this back over to the right side. Okay. Ooh, that's hot. Now this one, you have to turn the iron down. Okay. So it's supposed to be at medium heat, as the first one we put it onto the fabric that we're using for the applique. When you take off the paper, a lot of people like to score it because they find that if they try to peel it, they may make a little fraying on the edges. I don't seem to have that problem, so I always worry that if I score it with something like your seam ripper or your thread snips or paper scissors, but something that you want to score with, I'm always afraid I'll mess it up. So I don't have any problem, so I just peel it. Now, if you pressed the way that I did, away from the flying geese, okay, away from the star points in towards the white, you can see the shadow, and I'm just basically eyeballing. And I know that it's going to be pretty even with the 1/4 inch. Okay. It's going to be close to it. I don't know. Yeah, you can see that. It's pretty close, but it's not on it. And that just helped me eyeball. For me, there wasn't any precision. You can do this. You can add your shamrocks on that 3.5 inch square that we started with before you even put this together. I actually did that with the first one, and I didn't like it because I went with my ruler and I was trying to figure out, making sure I had a 1/4 inch, that I wasn't, and I was more centered. I felt like this was a lot easier for my eyes if I could see the block together and just basically center it with my eyeballs. Okay. So once I like where it's at, we've taken the paper off. We put the adhesive side down with the pretty side of the fabric facing up, and it is on medium heat. Now, with heat and bond, when we applied the adhesive to the green here, it was 2 seconds. But when you do it this way and you're applying it to your project, you actually want to hold it down for about 6 seconds. Okay. You can go less, but then I check to make sure that it's okay. If you need to go a little more, just a little bit, guys, because the adhesive can eventually not adhere if you do it too much or too little. And that's another reason that I did the fuse and tear first, because I didn't want too much heat going on and lose the adhesiveness. And I just rub it to check to make sure it's good. Once it's cool, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm using a blanket stitch. So this is what it looks like. Okay, that is actually a mint green. Let me turn the light up for a second. Okay, I think that you can see that better. So this is a mint green is what I ended up using. And if you're wondering about my stitch length and width, they're both at 2.0. Okay, so you know, on a blanket stitch it goes down and then it goes in and it goes down and it goes in. I use both for 2 and it worked out really nice, even coming around the skinnier sides. Okay, I just think it looked adorable. And so that's what I use, but you can do zigzag, you can do maybe a decorative stitch if there's one that you like. You can actually do a straight stitch around on top of the applique, but because it's raw edge, it will fray a little more than a blanket stitch. And so if that, in due time after you wash it, if that's okay with you, because sometimes that looks really darling, then that's fine too. But I also remember that template, I gave you the 1/4 inch also in case you have a different preference on your applique. Okay, this is my preference, so I just wanted to go through that with y'all. But so that's what you do, all 5 of them. So now I'm going to take you to the design board and we're going to talk about those cornerstones and sashing. So I'll see you in just a sec. Once you have all of your 10 blocks done, 5 stars and 5 9 patch, now it's time to lay them out. Okay, so all you're going to do is lay them out alternating. Okay, that's what gives this that Irish chain kind of look. And of course the cornerstones and sashing. So what do you need for that? So these are 2.5 by 6.5 inch background strips. Okay, and the printed fabric, the green, are 2.5 inch squares. Easy breezy, guys. We got this. All right, now what's really cool about this, if you want your shamrocks to face different directions, you can just simply spin them. You can have them going different directions. You can have them going opposite directions. And I think I'm going to do the opposite. So these ones, the stem is facing down. These ones, the stems are facing up. And the reason is it's going to be on a table, right? So I'm thinking no matter which direction I lay it down or where you are standing around the table or sitting at the table, the shamrocks are going to be facing you. It's a personal preference. This is your quilt. You do what you like. But I think I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, now, y'all know I do not like to sew long seams. So these strips, this sashing, that's why they're cut at 2.5 by 6.5, and you'll need 27 of those. The cornerstones, they're matching the same width as far as the strips and for what we used in the 9 patch. So everything flows at the same size, okay? And you'll need 18 of those. 18 2.5 inch squares, 27 2.5 by 6.5 inch background strips. Now, I don't like those long seams. So what is Angel going to do? I will, on these 2, I will sew both the side sashings on first. Both sides, okay? And for the top on this one, I'll sew the 2.5 to the strip, the 2.5 inch square to the strip. And that way, once these are on and these are together, they will nest nicely as long as you press them in opposite directions. I will press them in opposite directions. You can certainly press them open if you like. However, because I'm doing them in opposite directions, I will tell you, I will press these 2 side pieces, I will press them going out away from the star to keep that bulk minimized. The 2.5 inch squares, when I add them to this strip, I'm going to press them towards the background fabric. So this was going this way, these are going that way, and they'll nest. But I will put this on. Once these are together, everything will fit. Down at the bottom, I'll put the left and right on first. I'll add the 2.5 inch square to the strip, 2.5 inch square to the strip. They will nest nicely, and I'll do the same thing down here. So then I will have 2 different blocks, okay, that are surrounded by cornerstones and sashing. As far as the other ones go, I'm going to add this one's already added. So all these I will add to the block, okay? So second, third, fourth, and fifth, only on the right side do I need to add that, which also means, okay, these will already be done. So I will just need to add the 2.5 inch square to the strip. How am I going to press? Same direction. Towards the white, towards the white. Down here, it'll be the same thing. Only have to add to the right, only have to add the right side, only have to add the right side, and I will only have 2.5 inch squares on the top and on the bottom for the bottom row, okay? But you'll only have one of each to add. Makes it quite simple. So these will go together, these will go together, and this will go together. Only on the right, only on the right, okay? Only on the right, because this section will have already been done, okay? Press them in opposite directions and everything's gonna nest. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't like long seams. So I'm not gonna put my bottom and attach it to my top, because that is a 40 some inch seam. I don't like doing that. So what I'll end up doing is I'll make this a 4 patch, and then another 4 patch, and then I'll add these together and add them on to the 4 patch, add on to the 4 patch. That way I'm not contending with really, really long seams. Cornerstones and sashing can be your friend. And you could stitch this whole thing as one strip and add all the middles, stitch this as one, but then you got all those long seams. And y'all know I don't like long seams. So I'm going to break it up into individual blocks. And I dropped a square. All right. So that's how I'm going to tackle this. And then when we're done, this sucker is going to be ready to quilt. So I'm going to get this whole thing put together, and I'll see you in just a sec. So here she is, all said and done. She is ready as a table runner. I got it all stitched together. Now I was watching as I'm editing, and you know, watching and explaining how this whole thing works can be a little bit confusing. So what I've done is I've taken some pictures of the different steps, and I'm going to talk about them during a live, okay? Just to make some clarity. Some of you won't need it. That's fine. Some of you would like to hear it. So I have taken the pictures to break it all down. But we will do that on the live today at 3 p.m. Eastern time, as I'm here in Virginia. We'll do the live Q&A, and I have taken the pictures, and we're going to break it down just a little bit. But gosh darn it, is that not super cute? Now, the one really cool thing that I like about this particular pattern is it doesn't have to be just for St. Patty's Day, okay? You could leave the shamrocks out. You could make all the 2.5 inch squares scrappy, and some of the points in the stars. You could just do whatever is left over with your fabrics, and you could just have a great day. You don't have to put anything in the middle of that star. Not a thing. Or you can do something if you are comfortable with doing your own applique templates. You can use anything in the middle of that star that'll fit within a 3-inch square. You'll be able to use that and make it very custom for any holiday. Plain and simple. That's one of the things that I absolutely love about this pattern. Now, another thing I will tell you, if you want it to be longer or you want it to be wider or both, you can do that too. You just have to alternate the squares in, or the blocks in between. How many 9 patches? How many stars? You just add to it. Now you have to add more fabric, of course, but you could so do that. This is so customizable. It isn't even funny. So just a little here and there, and just a little fun with this, because my brain goes crazy when I see different things, and that's one of the things I thought, and I know a lot of you too will actually think this, but this is super cute for St. Patty's Day. Now I gotta quilt it, right? So here's why I don't have it quilted. I'm actually going to change my foot on the long arm. I have done in the past, I've done my own freehand quilting and a lot of custom. But I have robotics now, and I do have a ruler foot, number 1, and also the plate that goes on the long arm. For those of you who long arm, you know what I'm talking about, and I've never changed it because I love, love, love ruler work. Absolutely love ruler work. But that requires me to do my own custom work at times, and right now I don't have a lot of time for that, so I do have robotics. So I changed my foot to the bowl foot. That's what I call it. I don't know what it's really called, but it looks like a little bowl, and we can talk about that for anybody who's interested. And I'm hoping this is going to work. I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment. So that's the only reason why I haven't quilted this before the video, because if it doesn't work, I'm going to have to rip stitches. I'm not going to ruin the quilt. I'm just going to have to rip them, and I'm going to either have to do a stitch and a ditch to make life easy for me, or I will have to do some custom on my long arm, which is fine either way, but I'd rather just be able to load it, use the robotics. I actually know what thread, I know what pattern. I'm ready to go. But if it doesn't work, y'all would be looking at a hot mess back here. So I wanted to do the video first before I went and did the long arming, because I've never ever used this foot. I know what it's supposed to do. I know why it's there. But you know how that story goes. It's supposed to do this, it's supposed to be that, and then when you actually do it, it turns into something crazy. Yeah, it might be. It might not. It might be beautiful. So I hope I can tell you all about it once it's done. But at any rate, I will be on today live at 3 p.m. today, because I'm here in Virginia. It's Eastern time. Mayhem and I will both be here to answer any questions that you may have, or to add anything to the video that I felt like I needed to address. To include, I took those pictures, so I will break this down a little bit with pictures, and we'll talk about it. And as far as putting the whole thing together, and I don't use long seams, right? So I'm going to show how I did this in steps with the pictures, and I think that'll help a lot. So I hope that we see you today at 3 p.m. But until next time, guys, which we will have a live cherub chit chat next Wednesday. So I hope that you will join us for that, with all the inspirations from the cherubs in Halo community. But until next time, or until 3 p.m., or until next week, may you all continue to be inspired, productive, ever so joyful. Never stop believing, and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. I love y'all. Happy quilting. Whoop, whoop. Happy Hump Day, happy Wednesday, and I'll see you all soon.